I want to start with Brad because he's really plugged in with the program on an everyday basis, and you reflect back to that 5-6 year last year. After all of the success that Coach Otterbein and the guys have built, to drop back to 5-6 last year, what was the impact? How did they take it? What did they change, if anything, going forward from that 5-6 season?
Well, I think just like any other year, they're going to reflect on what went right and reflect on what went wrong, attempt to correct some of the things they perceive as going wrong. The 5-6 record, we had, I think, 3 losses by 3 points or fewer, including that, if you guys remember, we went double overtime with Michigan Tech. It was one of the last home games of the year, and they got us 30-27. So, having to play California, PA, it was always a nationally regarded team to open the season. That was a 3-point loss. Indianapolis, who has just dominated their league, that was our homecoming opponent, and that was a 3-point loss. So they weren't far away, and the games we won, we tended to win decisively. But coming into this year, it's really a new roster from a starter kind of top backup perspective. A lot of new guys that fans are going to get to meet and get to know this year. A lot of redshirt freshmen, a lot of sophomores going to be starting in some key roles for us. So it's transitioning these guys to get ready to handle that responsibility that's been the offseason emphasis.
Got to reload. We talk about it every single year. Every team in the country has to do that. Every team is graduating players. I want to go back to the quarterback because that's the money position in football. And the Chargers had a unique situation since I've been covering the team in that they had a senior starting his first year at quarterback in Sam Landry. His legacy is going to be that 5-6 record. But I actually thought that Sam did pretty darn well last year, all things considered. And some of those close losses that you mentioned, you really can't pin on his shoulders.
No, not at all. I mean, Sam was a really great fit for the offense from the standpoint that he could move the pocket, he was mobile, he could gain yards with his feet, and was a fairly accurate thrower. Those are the prerequisites that a quarterback needs in order to function in our offense. And, where you have to be able to roll out to your left or your right, catch guys and hit them in stride and get those 12, 15-yard gains, not necessarily the 60-yard bombs. That's not something we've ever really specialized in over the long stretch. It's moving the pocket, freeing yourself up and hitting the H-back, hitting the tight end over the middle, get your curl routes with wide receivers and hitting them in stride, getting 8 yards on 3rd and 5 kind of thing. So, Sam was the last guy to have a 100-yard rushing game for us as a quarterback, and he had that, I think, kind of late in the year. So, you can say a 5-6 record, and Sam gave us what we wanted from the quarterback position. And it just, it's the type of thing when you look at programs over the years, they'll go through these kind of odd transitions where you're not going to have a 3-year starter followed by a 3-year starter followed by another one. You're going to have, you don't want to call them dips, but just little oddities in the nature of who you got and who's going to be the guy under center to give you the best chance to win. That was Sam last year. And we can look at this year, and the guy is Mark LaPrairie, a sophomore from Rockford, which is an awfully good high school program in the state of Michigan, and he holds all their passing records. So Mark knows how to win, how to be productive, and he came from a good place in order to be prepared to step in and be our starter for this year.
Jimmy, I think that in the game of football, you have so many players that have to be good, and often you're as good as your weakest link. And the Chargers have been pretty good with depth down and up and down that roster the last couple of years. But I thought that the injury last season to Bennett Lewis, the running back, number 6, was a killer because he was a guy that added a dimension to the offense that we frankly haven't had in a while.
It's nice to have him back because you're right. It did. It just kind of let the air out of the balloon quickly in the season because he got hurt so early. Fortunately, he got that red shirt medical back. But, we're an awfully young football team. I looked at our 2 deep, and there's 44 guys on that 2 deep, and 9 of them are seniors. So we're going to see a lot of people that are going to have to step up and step up quickly.
You hate to make comparisons, but I feel like with Bennett Lewis, you have a bit of that LaShawn McCoy quality, which is a guy who can catch a pass out of the backfield. He can take a 3-yard pass and break it 60 yards. He's that kind of a game-breaking skill set. And I was kind of surprised that Otter used him in the scrimmage Saturday because I would have that guy in bubble wrap right now. But he had him out there in the scrimmage, and you could see in just the handful of plays that he played, that kind of explosion, Dan, and I know you love explosive plays, and he can make a big difference this year for that offense.
Oh, no doubt about that, Andy. He's an electrifying player. I mean, names like Joe Glendenning and Nate Clark and some other guys come to mind, Scott Schulte. But, hey, we ought to give a shout-out to some of those other Chargers who have really helped build this program with Otterbein. Of course, Jared Valdir, who's now with the Arizona Cardinals, and Andre Holmes, who's with the Oakland Raiders. And I know Cam White got cut from the Indianapolis Colts, but who knows? He might be back and with somebody else. But I think guys like that set the tone for this winning program that the Chargers have had. And last year was kind of an anomaly. And you look at this year's team, as we saw last Saturday during the scrimmage, they have some people that can make some plays. We saw some freshmen that won't play this year, but will play in a year or two, and they looked awfully good too. So I think that this year, who knows? 4-7, 7-4, 9-2. Who knows? I mean, it's just going to be one of those years that the Chargers are going to have to climb out of the depths and join the show in the GLIAC once again.
Well, you look at the preseason poll, and you get a feel for it. The Chargers right in the middle of that. They're going to be facing a team that's near the top of that preseason poll in Findlay that was an 8-3 squad last year. Talk about the offensive side of the ball, Brad, and obviously Bennett Lewis is so important with him staying healthy. LaPrairie, the sophomore quarterback, getting his first year as a starter. You mentioned him briefly a minute ago, but let's dig a little bit deeper into what he brings to this offense. Can you describe his game and what kind of dimension will be his strength as he leads this offense this year?
Well, from what I've seen, which keep in mind in practice, quarterbacks don't get hit.
Right.
So there's always a little bit of an unknown when you have a young player going into his first start. He got very limited action last year because Sam was healthy, and we did play in a lot of close games. But Mark does seem like he fits in well with our offense from the standpoint of he's got just a quick, compact throwing motion. He can move the pocket, roll out to his right, roll out to his left, and locate his receivers. I did like his vision of going through his progressions and finding the tight end, because our tight ends will kind of sneak up the middle because teams are used to playing us on the edges quite a bit. And I thought he did a nice job in some of the times I've seen him of identifying and making the throw to a tight end kind of up that seam as they're going up the field. So Mark is someone who's got great work ethic, great intelligence, and will get the most out of the study he puts in, and then we'll apply it out there. And like I said, you come from Rockford High School. That's a power school in the state of Michigan in high school football. So he's used to stepping into a program that is used to winning and expects winning and does his part to maintain that. So I think you're gonna get to know somebody who's very studious and will give the kind of effort that will put us in a position to win week in and week out. And you really look at the position Mark LaPrairie held with his high school, and Bennett Lewis just had monster junior and senior years in high school up in Saginaw. It's almost a dream team type of backfield in terms of what those guys accomplished before coming here. It's exciting now to see them actually go out, work together, and make some things happen for us on the field.
Well, I think Dan's right. I think Joe the Show, or Joe Glendenning, he hated being called Joe the Show, but he's an exception to the rule. We got a blue chip skill guy. And those have been tough to come by. Andre Holmes developed into that. But generally, we're a group that has a lot of guys that bring their lunch bucket and do their jobs. And to have an outstanding couple of skill set guys in that backfield is really, really huge. David, you just had an opportunity to talk to Coach Otterbein a few minutes ago, right. And we're going to talk about the defense in the next segment. Any light you can shed into this Chargers offense from your meeting with Coach Otterbein?
Basically, he and I basically talked a little bit about last year. I think he thought the main issue last year was that there really wasn't that, that attitude in the fourth quarter. Okay, let's not lose this game. No, let's refuse to lose mindset. Somebody to step up in the huddle and say that kind of thing. So I think he's really looking for somebody to step forward and do that this year. As we've been talking about, though, he's really excited about the new quarterback. He's really excited about Bennett coming back, and I think he's very excited about the offensive line. He thinks there's a lot of talent there. but it's kind of there's not a lot of game experience there, and he's a little bit concerned about that. But the no game experience thing is going to start to be taken care of this week. So some of those guys are going to have to take some lumps for a while, and there's going to be probably some coaches pulling some hair out. But he's pretty excited about that group. There's some athleticism there, and he thinks it just may take some time for those guys to gel.
Left tackle position, Dan mentioned Jared Valdir. We didn't have to worry about left tackle during that time. Jake Bull is now ascending to that position, Brad, and Coach Schreffler and Coach Otterbein are really excited about him too.
Well, I think, I talked to Coach Schreffler, like how's the line doing a few days ago. He really likes their athleticism, and that's a word that you could apply to Jared Valdir as he was developing in our program several years ago. Jake Bull is a guy who's a converted tight end. We recruited him as a tight end, and now we've moved him over to left tackle, and he has won that job by being very athletic, and he's in a position, stay healthy, keep improving. He can be a 4-year starter, and I can't overemphasize how important it is to have stability and skill at that left tackle position. That's so much of where an offense really just makes its mustard is at that spot. And Jake's got the athleticism that's very comparable at similar stage in his career that Jared Valdir had in 2006.
That's why left tackles get paid. That's why Jared Valdir is drawing those checks, playing for the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, the left tackle is one of the most important positions on the field. And if this Bull guy can handle it and we don't have to worry about it for a while, that would be wonderful.
Well, Coach Otterbein's correct. If you see our depth chart, it is a young group of guys, and what you need with an offensive line is that continuity, that communication, that ability to play together. And we just graduated 3 guys who started together for 3+ years with Tim Hornack and Slim Landry and Pat Ryan. I mean, those guys had that chemistry down. It's going to be a matter of our current guys now that are stepping into starting roles to develop that and develop it together. And the most progress you can make at that is in those game situations. Our first 2 games are on the road, hostile environments, unfamiliar environments, because we haven't played at Lake Erie or Findlay in some time. So they're going to be able to get acquainted together quickly. And then when we have our home opener September 20th, boy, how much more are those guys going to know then compared to what they do now? To see the development is going to be real exciting.
La Prairie is going to be targeting Evan Bach, who had a big play. We screaming Bachtober from the press box on Saturday. Evan Bach's coming back, and then you look at Dro Schrebernack, who had a huge season the second half last year. I'm an Andrew Wilcox guy, but number 9, Dano, he may have to wait. I personally believe his time could be coming down the line a little bit. Who do you see as being the primary target or targets? I open this up to anybody for La Prairie this year.
Well, Schrebernack probably. I mean, he was last year. He was a big guy, But there's also a wide receiver that's pretty tall. What's his name, Brad? Big 6'3" kid that's been in the program for a while now.
Well, if you're referring to Evan Stasek, unfortunately, he is out.
Okay.
He suffered an injury, and it's sad. A 5th-year senior kid has really put his time in and has some good moments.
Well, as did Garrett Lee, the local boy from Pittsford, who blew out his ACL, MCL, GCI, GCS, whatever. He really messed up his knee, and I was talking to him on campus, and that's kind of a sad deal, Andy. You know Garrett, and he's a fine young man, and he'd worked so hard to play his senior season, and that's not going to be. And then we also got another local boy from the Hornets, Van Orman, Zach Van Orman, playing for the Chargers. So there's 3 local boys on the Charger team right now.
I thought it was really clever. I had Garrett Lee in this summer to do a little preview, and we just talked, and he came in and did the show, and nobody will ever come in and talk to me over the summer anymore. It's the curse of the timeout show. I'm so sick for Garrett. I mean, he's such a nice kid. Dan's right. He paid his dues. And this was a chance for him to possibly crack that starting lineup. We'll talk about the linebacking core when we come back. But, Schrebernack didn't play a lot on Saturday in the scrimmage. I don't read a lot into that. We'll know a lot more Saturday night, right, Brad?
Oh, no doubt. What Joe did was really neat because he emerged during the season last year. And he's a big target, wide shoulders, about 6'2", 6'3", and found a way to get in open space. And the ability to get open sometimes is so instinctive. It's not always easy to teach, but boy, if you got it, you can really exploit it. So he can build on that. And I think another guy that's going to get into the mix this year, fans are going to get to know, number 10, Taylor Cohn, is one of those redshirt freshmen, and he's a compact, strong kid who can take a hit over the middle and hang on to the ball. You're going to see him.
Is that number 10?
Yes.
Yeah, we saw him. He is very good.
Yeah, he's going to get some reps. He'll get out there and help us and help him, kind of a chain mover in terms of a guy who can get away from coverage a bit, catch the ball, take a hit, and bounce right back up, get ready for the next play. Taylor's one of those younger guys fans are going to get to know over the next few years that's going to be a factor for us.
Jimmy Eckhardt loves chain movers.
You got to move the chains. Find the fullback, find the tight end, right, Jimmy?
Hey, if you don't find the fullback and you don't find the tight end, you're going to find the door.
Find the door. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball. We're going to start off with Dan and Jim and see if they can kind of put the three linebackers who are graduating in perspective, or who graduated in perspective as they've been around the program longer than anybody. We'll do that in just a moment as we continue with the Charger Roundtable 2014 on WCSR. I love me some A.J. Kegg. I love that guy. He, honestly, I've talked to him about doing some radio stuff. He would be off the charts. He's so much enthusiasm and a great kid. Jim Eckhardt and Dan Bisher. Jim's in the Hall of Fame. Dan Bisher's on the Hall of Fame committee. Both of the guys have been around the program forever. You guys have seen some decent linebackers come and go at Hillsdale College over the years. The trio that just graduated, led by Brett Pashy, has to be at least on the list of some of the best that we've seen in a while.
I've seen a lot of great linebackers over the years, but I don't remember ever having a trio.
Right.
That's what separated those guys, is that they all got it done, and that doesn't happen very often.
No, you go back to Cordy and Rodney Patterson, and a lot of great linebackers. But as you said, three of them, man.
Dennis Sousa. There's a lot of old linebackers around here, but
the thing that I liked about it, guys, was that Pashy was the leader, and we always sort of felt like maybe he was a little bit better than the other two. But there were times when I thought that Embry might be the best.
Yes.
With all the interceptions that he had last year. They were tough. I mean, they were really, really tough, and it just seemed like the consistency. They never got hurt. They never missed games. They were out there performing each and every week. And, boy, if you're Craig Blanchard and you have three senior linebackers like that, you sleep a little bit better on Friday night knowing that they're going to be out there on Saturday for you.
It's pretty easy to make some adjustments. Go hit him.
Yeah, they did an outstanding job. We're going to miss those guys, but if I understand correctly, we got some young guys coming up that are pretty good. Sans Garrett Lee, who had worked so hard, and I'm telling you, Andy, you've seen Garrett. He is really built. He put on a ton of muscle, and he was in fine physical condition and primed and ready to go. And we don't want to belabor it, but our best to Garrett. And who are these new guys, Brad?
Well, two of our starters are guys that, sort of like Sam Landry, where they're putting their time in, and as they get to be older players, they get that chance to start. Justin D'Agostino and Butch Herzog. Butch is a captain, one of our four captains. And they're two of the starting linebackers. They're both upperclassmen, and they're guys who know the system and got a good amount of playing time. I mean, they got a lot of special teams time, but they also got a decent amount of reps at linebacker last year, given the fact we had three-year starters kind of entrenched in that spot. The guy in the middle is 55, Drew Mallory. Is going to be a guy that I think people in this room are going to really enjoy watching, because he is built in that same mode of the Tom Cordys and the Devin Moynahans and those guys that we've had the last few years. Drew he looks for you and targets you and hits you, and he wins that battle. He looks for the contact, enjoys the contact, looks like he's got some good speed and can read things well. They're putting a sophomore there that kind of that Mike position, and that has a good amount of responsibility on the defensive side of the ball. So Drew Mallory is a name that these guys in this room are going to be calling often throughout the year, and he'll be able to pursue things side to side. But I really like his north-south action. He gets after people and puts them down.
What gives me confidence, guys, is John Lindley. The standard and the constant with all of these backers has been Coach Lindley since Otter's been there. I went and got a haircut the other day, and Coach came in and kind of waiting for me to get done before he could get his haircut. And I said, Coach, I've been working at keeping my pad level low. He said, you're not a hip bender, are you, Brown? And, I was about ready to drop and give him 50 at that point in time. I mean, the guy is so intense, and his practices, we've talked about it before, are just they're entertaining. I don't know that I'd want to go through them, but just to watch them, you're watching a lot of football get taught and a lot of, that ability to overcome adversity during the game. Stuff's going to go wrong during games, and Coach Lindley has those backers ready for that, and the mental toughness is right there. This secondary, I mean, Jim, you and I have covered some of Daniel Pittman's finest moments, the 2 or 3 interception games, the times when he's come up and laid the hit, setting the corner. I'm a big Pittman guy, and I'm looking forward to one more year of Daniel Pittman.
Hey, how can you not look forward to Daniel Pittman? He will hit you. He will harm you if you don't run with your head up and your head on a swivel. And by the way, we have a new rule this year about that, too.
Oh, the targeting rule?
The targeting rule.
That was in last year, so this is the second year for it.
Yeah, but this year they're really after it.
We'll see.
Well, I hope they are. If they're going to put in a rule, you either have to do it or get rid of it.
There were 6 calls in the league last year.
Yeah.
6 targeting rules, calls.
Yeah.
Pittman is, to me, you have cover corners, and then you have some guys that are good at coming up into run coverage and setting that corner. But to me, and I don't study the film, I don't grade out the film, but to me, Pittman's good at both. He can help you in the run support. He's a pretty good cover corner. And with some of the athletes that you're running up against, whether it be against Grand Valley or Saginaw Valley or Ferris State, my Lord, to have a cornerback that can hang with those guys, those thoroughbreds that you get with those schools, it's a tough thing. Hillsdale College in the past maybe sometimes struggled a little bit to get the kind of athlete that you need to combat some of those guys, and Pittman has definitely held his own. And don't forget Tim Moynette. He's a solid safety back as well. So the secondary is returning most of the guys. It should be pretty sound. And up front, Brad, it's a lot of familiar names.
Well, and Andy, I mentioned this to you in the break. A lot of times during these roundtables, I kind of give everybody a younger player that just is ready to break out and is going to become a real household name. Zach Swaffer, number 44, is a defensive end who will get after the quarterback. He is, in my view, the best pass rusher we've had since Drew Barabee, and he wasn't bad when we had him. He was a 4-year starter, and he was an All-American, so I think he did pretty well for himself. But Zach Swaffer, he's got size, he's got speed, he's athletic. Boy, in our spring scrimmage, he just lived in the backfield, which is good and bad. It's. I mean, you guys know after every play in a practice, half the coaches are thrilled and half of them are mad. But Zach Swaffer's a guy who
we in the broadcast booth get that way sometimes too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. He will make a difference. He will create negative plays for the opposing offense, and boy, what's better for a defense than to push that offense back? And I'm just really sold on Zach Swaffer's ability. He could be a dominant defensive end in this league, and he's got guys along that defensive front that are pretty veteran guys that have started. Brian Siegert, Roger Stewart, Tyler Jenks have all started more than 1 year, and their big guys take up a lot of room, and they get nice push. And at that position, you get that push in the middle, bring the guy around the edge. You force quarterbacks out of their comfort zone. Andy, the term I like to use with you is force people to play left-handed and make you play away from your strengths. And a guy like Swaffer can do that to an offense. I cannot wait to see the damage that Zach's going to do this year.
We're going to take another break and then come back and get our final predictions from our esteemed panel here. And before we do that, David Vantress, the Daily News editor, you had a chance to talk to Coach Otterbein today. But before we take our final break, any other nuggets, any other information that you think our listeners would find interesting from Coach?
Not really. I think he's just he's excited. The guys are excited to get out there, and he's doesn't really know what he has with this young group, and he thinks there's going to be quite a few guys not getting a whole lot of sleep Friday night, butterflies about the game. I think there may be some coaches that may feel that way too, but guys are ready to get out there, and the only way to get that experience is to play the game. So
not an easy trip down to Findlay to start the season, but I think Bisher and Eckhardt, you're 100% right. You know, the fact is Findlay was 8-3 last year, but their strength of schedule was not great.
No.
So there could be an opportunity there, even though it is a road game, to go down there. And I tell you, you win your first game on the road, you feel really good about coming back home in a couple of weeks. So they have that opportunity. Briefly, the kicking game. Stephen Meddy is popping up in some of the preseason lists. I was kind of surprised by that. He did have a solid season last year. They have something with that young kicker.
Well, I think his confidence grew over
Right.
the course of the season. And, he's a young guy. He started as a redshirt freshman last year, sophomore. His confidence grew, and I think, frankly, his ability grew. And he's somebody that can be a real weapon. I mean, if you've got an offense that kind of runs out of gas at the 27, you want to be able to still pull 3 points out of that possession. On the punting side, Matt Altringham is as good of a punter as we have in this conference. He's a 3-4 year starter. Those hidden yards, those field position yards that I think the coaches really appreciate, Matt's going to produce those. He was second-team All-GLIAC last year, and I think he absolutely has the ability to be a first-team All-GLIAC punter this year. If you can force field position and give our defense an ability to unleash on an offense if they're backed up a little bit, Matt's a weapon that can be exploited, and he's really going to help us this year. Todd Fricke and the special teams, Andy, you and I did the game at the Hall of Fame Stadium where he took the kickoff back for a touchdown. Just speed all the way. So special teams will be a strength for us this year.
I love me some Todd Fricke, too. I love me a bunch of people. I told Otter last year, Brad, you and I had lunch this summer, and I talked to you about this, but I just told Coach Otter, why not put Todd Fricke at a slot and let him catch a couple passes, and you should have seen the look that Otter gave me. Oh, my Lord. I wouldn't look.
You dropped to 250.
I wouldn't look for it to happen right away. Let's just put it that way. We'll take a final break. We'll have the panel give us their predictions for the season when we come back on the 2014 Charger Roundtable. ExpressSOS.com. The Timeout Show. We're going to break in here because we're running out of time. Our Timeout Show is brought to you by the Jack Smith Agency, Hillsdale Travel Center, Coach B's Driving School, Randy's Auto Body, and our newest sponsor, our friends at Performance Automotive. I hope you'll run into Rich Galloway this week, stop in at the store in Hillsdale and Jonesville, and just thank Rich for joining us and being part of the show. 5-6 last year, guys. Preseason poll, the Chargers are right in the middle of the pack. They're rated 5th right now out of 8 in the GLIAC North. New quarterback, sometimes that's a red flag for a team. Jim, where do you think they're going to end up when it's all said and done?
I think when everything is all said and done, people are going to be pretty proud of the Hillsdale College Charger football team this year. Forget wins and losses.
So no more specifics than that.
Well, I don't know how specific you can be.
It's a lot of unknowns. There's no doubt about it.
There's a lot of unknowns, and I just think that they'll win more than they lose, and they'll make you mighty proud doing it.
I'm going to be proud of them anyway because I love those coaches and I believe in the kids that we have, so I totally agree with that. And if you're saying that they're going to win more than they lose, we've got him down to 6-5 or higher. So we've got that much specificity. Brad, I don't even know if are you able to say as the assistant AD what you think, or is that off the books for you? Okay, perfect.
I can say I think Bennett Lewis is a big key for us because he is a game breaker. He's got the ability to change games with the way he can break plays, extend plays into long touchdowns, get you a lead. He's a real X factor. I think the schedule is so much more favorable than it was in past years when our last 7 weeks were against the gauntlet of the GLIAC North Division. The schedule's mixed up now in terms of like North and South teams, and I mean the bottom line is the North has just dominated the South in those inter-division matchups since we went to the format we used to have. Now it's mixed up a little bit. We got Tiffin back on the schedule, Lake Erie's back on the schedule. Still got Grand Valley, who's number 2 in the country, and they should be there at number 2. So that's our homecoming game, October 4th. We'll pack the house, see how we do. We got nothing to lose, but I think we got some X factors, and we got a lot of growth that can happen. That can really build some things as we go through the year. I'm looking forward to seeing the growth process happen.
David, what do you think?
Just based on my conversation with Coach Otterbein earlier today, I was talking about just kind of finding that, that intangible factor in the fourth quarter, guys who are going to, step up and kind of make the difference between winning and losing. I think they're really going to find that. I think I see 7-4.
7-4 works for me. Dan?
Well, in the past I've made some predictions that didn't come true. Well, last year I think I said that they'd be probably 8-3, and except for 3 games that they lost by 3 points, I might have been right there. So it's tough to make a prediction, and I agree with Brad that Bennett Lewis, and he's an unknown factor in the GLIAC. We know about him, and most of the GLIAC has no clue what we're about to unleash. So, given that, you know what I might have said, they could be a 4-7 team. I think Bennett would probably be good for at least 2 games. So who knows? Maybe I would agree with Jimmy's. He didn't give you the numbers, but the same idea. At least 6-5, and maybe above that.
I think that a 6-5 season this year would be wonderful.
Yeah.
With all of the young players that they have going forward and building up, I think, Brad, that we expect in a couple of years this team's going to be absolutely loaded. I think 6-5 is a fair prediction, and when you're making a prediction in September 2nd or whatever, or September 3rd, you're basing it on what you know. So many variables, so many things to play out, so much fun to be had in the next 11 weeks. You're going to be hearing and reading all of these guys along the way. The Hall of Famer Jim Eckhardt, Brad Monastiere, assistant AD at the college, David Vantress each and every day in the Hillsdale Daily News, and Dan Bisher on the online feed and also on WCSR for the road games. My buddy ChargerBlue.com just tweeted that he's ready to start as we leave. But also check out ChargerBlue.com with Andy Losick. He does a sensational job with Chargers coverage there.